Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Happy Sunday to all of you ladies and gentlemen. Life is not just about getting prepared and about thinking of all of the things that can go wrong in the future or in the now. So I'm telling you this, ladies and gentlemen, so that you remember to enjoy your life. Do those things that you find enjoyable, whatever it may be for you. However, when we take a look around and see what's going on, we know that we need to be prepared just in case. I believe that it is the responsibility of the head of the household. Well, let's say the heads of the household because it should be a team effort. So be it husband or wife, or preferably husband and wife, you should both feel a responsibility to ensure that your family can continue to have the standard of living that they're being provided now in case something happens in the future. And that's why I like to do these bi-weekly compilations of the news that's going on, not just in this country where I live, the United States of America, but around the world. That way we can see what's going on, what's the likelihood of it affecting the way that we live so that we can prepare for it and not be caught off guard. Now, I have a whole bunch of news to go through today, and be on the lookout tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, because tomorrow I'll be doing a video on one subject matter that's very important in my opinion. Now, before we start, I wanted to inform you all that I noticed that the winners of the Exodus 600 on the OUPES YouTube page has not been shown. They said they were going to pick them and show them on the 20th of April, and they haven't. But let me remind you all anyways that they're still going to do that. They're still going to go ahead and pick 20 winners. So 20 of you all that went to their site and subscribed and left a comment will be entered to win one of these Exodus 600s. And this is going on sale tomorrow. So this little unit is going to be making its debut tomorrow. And the price is going to be awesome, like 70% off the regular price. And it's going to run for an entire month. So you'll have plenty of time to take a look at it, see what the specifications are, see what the price is, and if it suits you. Let me tell you one thing that I like about this so far that I really like. I've had this for a couple of weeks and I've used it mainly to charge my phones, my tablet, etc. But this thing, even being so small at about 8 pounds, it carries a big punch. It has about 250 or 260 watt hours of storable energy, but it has 600 watt continuous output. It has 300 watts of input via solar or AC, and it has a 1200 watt surge. You know what that means, that it has a 1200 watt surge and a 600 watt continuous output? This little machine right here can run my 31 cubic foot refrigerator. Maybe only for about 2 or 3 hours, but it can run it. So that pretty much tells you all of the other things that this would be able to run. And for those of you that believe that we still have a two-party system and not a unit party, the House on Saturday passed a set of foreign aid bills that would send $61 billion to Ukraine, $26 billion to Israel, and $8 billion to the Indo-Pacific region. Ladies and gentlemen, just a second. They said $95 billion, right? Let's add this up because something's missing. $61 billion plus $26 billion is $87 billion. $87 billion plus $8 billion is, yeah, it is $95 billion. I thought maybe they were missing the part that they were using to aid our southern border in order to fix our problems here in the United States of America. But it seems that our two-party system, they rather take care of the border of other nations. Yes, I'm being hyperbolic because it's disgraceful. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, in this country, the greatest country that has ever existed in the history of mankind, and I do believe that, one day it will come to a fall. It will fall. And just like Thomas Jefferson said, I'm going to paraphrase it, so it's not going to be great. One day our children will wake up sleeping on the sidewalks that our fathers built. Because the banksters, and in this case as well, the politicians, have stolen everything. And it's because we, 300 plus million Americans, we allow 537 people, 435 in Congress, 100 in the Senate, and 2 on Capitol Hill, to control and dictate to us, ladies and gentlemen, how we will live our lives, how much of our wealth we have to give them. And not only is it 537, but also those people that give those 537 their orders, like the IMF, like the UN, International Bank of Settlements, etc. And you all remember when this gentleman here became Speaker of the House, Mr. Johnson, right? Yes, Mr. Johnson. Everybody was like, oh, he's going to make a great Speaker of the House. Well, he is making a great Speaker of the House for the uniparty system that we have in place. And I know that I trigger some people when I say uniparty, when I say that we have nothing but crooked politicians in Congress and the Senate. And you all understand that I don't mean 100%. There is a very small percentage of people that are actually representing their constituents up there in Congress and the Senate. There's a very small percentage, but I would say that most do not. And if you don't agree with me, please leave in the comments why you think that they do represent the people. Speaker Johnson made it essentially impossible to vote for any of the bills before the House today, without assisting in the effort to send $60 billion to Ukraine and $9 billion to Hamas, says Mike Lee. And this is the part that should really concern you. He also made it impossible to condition any of those things on U.S. border security. Meaning what, ladies and gentlemen? Meaning that this gentleman, Mr. Johnson here, in my opinion, of course, serves not we the people who put him in power. So who is it that he serves, if not we, the American people? Well, don't worry, AP. The next time that we have to go out there and vote, we're going to change everything. Okay, you know, someone sent me an email once about the United States of America. And, you know, he thought, in my opinion, that when I talk about how corrupt the United States of America is, that I meant everyone, that I meant the people. And what I mean is, no, it's not the people, it's the government that is so corrupt, that has brought all of these things upon us, the people, right? And he said, the good thing about the United States of America is that we can change things. We can change it for the better. We have the power of the vote. We have the Constitution. Yes, we have the power of the vote. We have the Constitution. But remember, I think it was Lenin that said, it does not matter what the vote is or who you vote for. What it matters is who counts the vote. Is that really the power of the vote? Do you see that we've had any real positive changes in the last 5 decades, let's say, from having presidents that were Democrat, Republican, having full control of the House, having the Congress be controlled by Democrats or Republicans, etc., etc.? Has there been any real positive change, ladies and gentlemen? Even if you look back towards our last administration, the one before this one, there was a lot of good things in the administration, a lot of really good things. But the fact of the matter is that we will eventually implode because of our debt, and that doesn't matter who's in office. Our debt is our Achilles heel, and the way that we've been able to control our debt for all of these decades is through our military, and that will come to an end as soon as we can no longer borrow. You know, how many countries do you think owe more than the United States of America? And I would contend that countries that are poor countries, that owe a very low percentage of GDP in debt, are richer than us. They may have a lower standard of living, but they're living within their means. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a list of the top 8 countries in the world that are the most indebted when you consider what they make to their GDP, or what they owe, what they owe to their GDP. Number 1, Venezuela. Very simple to understand that. I was actually having a conversation with my daughter yesterday about how she should do a little bit of research on Venezuela and see how it is that socialism does not work, because they eventually run out of other people's money. Japan, number 2, at 266% of their debt to GDP ratio. That means, ladies and gentlemen, debt to GDP ratio, it means that they owe 2.66 times more in debt than what they bring in every year. And if we bring it all the way down here to number 6, the United States of America, 127% of debt to GDP ratio, but that is not taking into accountability all of the unfunded liabilities that we have, which equal in excess of $100 trillion. Now, sure, when we compare our standard of living here in the Western nations to those that are very poor countries or considered poor countries, yeah, our standard of living is great. We have air conditioning. Everybody in the U.S. has a color TV, PS5, whatever it is, right, ladies and gentlemen? We all have running water. That's a good thing. When we consider our standard of living to these other countries like Brunei, Brunei is the least indebted country in the world. Their standard of living may be less, but in my opinion, they're wealthier than we are. Why is that? Because although their standard of living is less than that of ours, they don't owe the man, right? Their debt to GDP ratio is 3%, which means that if they really wanted to tighten down the hatches, all they would have to do is take 1/30th of their income, of their GDP, and pay off their debt in 1 year. That is doable. Whereas you have 150, 200, 300 debt to GDP ratio, that's not really doable, ladies and gentlemen, because it will not be politically viable for a country to do that or its politicians to do that. Why? Because we have a society of people that want. There's no longer any delayed gratification. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, is very important, and I was going to read everything that I've got highlighted, but I'm only going to read like the first 2 or 3, hoping that you will come back and revisit this article and read the entire thing. Because if we were to teach this to our children, then the next generations would be better. Imagine if your child went to school prepared with this information that I'm going to share with you right now, and they challenged their teachers. And then they challenge their college teachers or college professors, etc., etc. Imagine how different our world would be. What are Mises, his name is Mises, 6 lessons? So Ludwig von Mises, Economic Policies. Ludwig von Mises came up with these lessons that pretty much say, listen, if you want to have a successful financial institution in your country, these are the 6 lessons that you have to learn and abide by. And I have to say that I agree with every single one. Why? Because it's just common sense. He doesn't prescribe to creating wealth out of nothing, because it's impossible to create something out of nothing. In order to create something, you first have to give up something else. And his first lecture is on capitalism. And I only highlighted a small part because I didn't want to make this too long. But he says here, ending it, prosperity is the result of providing for the future. More precisely, it is the result of setting aside consumption today by saving and investing resources in production. So it's kind of like what I said. You work and you take that labor that you made, you take the extra labor, right, your excess wealth, and you put it into something that's going to preserve your energy to buy later on. Mises says that this principle explains why some countries are more prosperous than others when it comes to economic growth. There are no miracles, he says. There is only the application of the principles of the free market economy, of the methods of capitalism. Lecture number 2 is on socialism, and it says, when the private ownership of the means of production is prohibited, then economic calculation is made impossible. Why? Because the government cannot do it. Without market prices for factors, we cannot economize production and provide for the needs of the masses. No matter who oversees the socialist planning board, the result is mass deprivation and chaos. And I guess that leads into the third one, interventionism. Interventionism describes a situation in which the government wants to interfere with market phenomena. Each intervention involves an abrogation of the consumer's sovereignty. Again, regulations are just a tax that you, the end user or consumer, will pay, because the producer will always pass on the costs of regulations to you. Interventionism as a middle-of-the-road policy is actually a road toward totalitarianism. And ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you, who runs that mom and pop shop store that you visit? Who really runs it? Is it really mom and pop, or is it really all of the regulations that city, state, and federal government have on that mom and pop. I remember reading somewhere, this was a very long time ago, so it may have changed, but they were saying that there's like 16 or 18 types of regulations on how you can make a pillow here in the United States. I know you wanted me to go through the rest of those, but I will be leaving the links to all of these articles on a pinned comment so that you can go and check them out for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. The IRS announces tax refund increase as it rakes in near record $4.7 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, our government raked in $4.7 trillion from the American people this year, and it's still going to have about a $2 trillion deficit, if not more. This is another segment on what happens when you run out of other people's money. Amid budget shortfall, San Francisco re-examines tax burden on big businesses. Facing mounting budget woes this election year, remember this election year, right? As spending far outpaces revenues, the city of San Francisco is scrambling to reform its infamously large and complex tax burden on businesses. So they're stuck on a catch-22, right? Or between a rock and a hard place, however you want to say it. Do we tax these people more? Or do we risk them leaving, just like all of these other businesses that have left because of our policies? They don't know what to do now. Why? Because they're running out of other people's money. Not only are they taxing the heck out of their citizens, but they're really taxing the heck out of the corporations that bring in lots of tax revenue. And the problem is these companies are like, hey, we can just move over here and save a whole bunch of money. Because what's a company for? To make a profit. And it seems that San Francisco has forgotten that, and now they're going to pay the price. San Francisco's largest 5 employers now account for nearly a quarter of the city's total business tax revenue. What happens if only one of these employers leaves? And if any were to relocate outside of the city, such would leave San Francisco currently facing an $800 million deficit vulnerable. They would like to see changes that would not incentivize businesses to move jobs out of San Francisco, since the city's largest employers are required to pay a disproportionate amount of business taxes. But shifting the tax burden elsewhere, such as increasing the city's already large sales tax, could hurt a retail sector that has been decimated by a flurry of closures in recent years, analysts say. So this is going to be interesting to see what will happen. Maybe they'll get a federal government bailout like, California did, or the whole state of California did during the health crisis. We'll have to see. And the last one of the day, I've said this often and I'll say it again. Go to a poor country and ask them if they care about climate change, ladies and gentlemen. Go. I dare anyone to go to a poor country and ask them, hey, what do you think about climate change? This is a luxury of Western nations, right? This is a luxury that we here in Western nations have. So listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. How is the climate change narrative preventing Africa from modernizing and gaining prosperity? How is it? Because Western nations are telling them, you can do this and you can't do that because of climate change, while their people are starving. Under a blazing Kenyan sun, elderly women toil on their hands and knees in the reddish-brown clay, separating the choking weeds from the small green shoots of a finger millet crop. The women are barehanded and barefoot, and they work from 8 a.m. to 5 or 6 p.m. at night, clearing a small field that takes 3 days. A combine harvester could replace 1,000 people. And this gentleman that was doing the interview says, it makes me sad whenever I see my mom wadding through millet. We have women kneeling down and uprooting weeds throughout the farm all day, and it's sunny. Those machines would change our lives, but we can't send machines over there. We can't do it. We have them, but we can't send them over there. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about the continent of Africa. It's a very rich continent. They are very mineral rich. They have a lot of gold, etc., etc. There's no reason, in my opinion, why they can't help to feed their people by using industrialized methods in order to harvest their food and plant their food, etc. But climate change. They continue to say here, I come from a community where people use cow dung to fertilize their farms. And the reason for that is because last year, the government of Kenya decided that they were going to listen to what the IMF was telling them. It was telling them to end fertilizer subsidies. The new climate colonialism is being driven by global entities such as the UN, which says Africa should have energy, but due to climate change concerns, it should focus on wind and solar. And the UN, ladies and gentlemen, is that entity which is also trying to control every nation in the world, including the United States of America. And it's doing a pretty good job at trying to reverse the progress that we've had as a nation over the last 100 years. But that's for another video. I hope you got something out of this. If anything, just a little bit of entertainment. I truly do appreciate you hanging out here this Sunday with me, and I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend. God bless every one of you. Remember to go check out the Exodus 600 right here. Tomorrow is its debut, and it's going to be at a savings of 70% from what the original price will eventually be. But it's going to be on sale for about a month or so. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, again, God bless every one of you. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.